My son told me he hated me over a cold dinner I didn't even have the appetite to eat. He didn't shout. That's what made it worse. He just looked at me, eyes flat, like I was a stranger who'd done something unforgivable. I wish you weren't my father. And I sat there, holding a fork I never used, trying to understand how we got here. Because for most of his life, things felt normal. Not perfect, but normal. I worked a stable job, came home every evening, coached his little league team when he was younger. His mother, my wife, handled most of the emotional stuff, and I told myself that was just how families worked. We weren't affectionate, maybe, but we weren't broken. At least, that's what I thought. Looking back now, I realize I might have missed something important. Maybe 100 small things. And now, at 43, I'm sitting in a house that feels too quiet, wondering how my own son came to hate me, and whether he's right to. His name is Daniel. He's 17 now. Smart, quiet, observant in a way that makes you feel like he sees more than he says. As a kid, he used to follow me everywhere. I couldn't fix a sink or mow the lawn without him standing nearby, asking questions, handing me tools like it mattered. Somewhere along the way, that stopped. I blamed it on teenage mood swings. Everyone does, right? Kids pull away. They get distant. They start living inside their own heads. His mother, Claire, used to say, "He just needs space." And I believed her. Claire and I had been married for 20 years. We weren't the kind of couple that posted anniversary tributes or held hands in public. But we had history. Stability. Routine. That was our version of love. Or so I thought. There were arguments, sure. Mostly about money, sometimes about Daniel. But nothing explosive. Nothing that felt like it would tear us apart. If anything, the real problem was silence. We stopped asking each other questions years ago. If I'm being honest, I wasn't the easiest person to live with. I worked long hours, came home tired, and expected things to just function. Dinner ready. House in order. No drama. Claire never complained loudly, but she had this way of going quiet that made the whole house feel tense. I ignored it. When Daniel got older, I started noticing he'd take her side in small disagreements. Nothing major, just little things. If I snapped about a messy kitchen, he'd suddenly need to leave the room. If Claire sighed or went silent, he'd follow her. I told myself he was just protective of his mother. But there was something else in his eyes sometimes. Something guarded. Like he was keeping track of something. There were moments I'd catch him watching me, not with admiration anymore, but suspicion. That should have bothered me more than it did. Instead, I shrugged it off. Told myself I was imagining things. That's the thing about denial. It feels a lot like peace. The first real crack appeared about a year ago. Claire started working later than usual. She'd say she had extra projects, deadlines, meetings that ran long. It wasn't completely out of character. She'd always been responsible, but something felt off. She was more careful with her phone. Started taking it with her everywhere, even to the bathroom. I noticed, but I didn't say anything. Part of me didn't want to know. Daniel noticed too. I could tell by the way he'd glance at her when her phone buzzed. Or how he'd go quiet when she stepped outside to take calls. One night he asked me, "Do you trust Mom?" It caught me off guard. "Of course I do," I said, maybe too quickly. He didn't respond. Just nodded like he'd expected that answer. That should have been the moment I asked him what he meant. But I didn't. I went back to my TV, my routines, my comfortable ignorance. The turning point came from something stupid. A notification. Claire had left her phone on the kitchen counter while she was in the shower. It buzzed once, then again. I wasn't trying to snoop. I swear I wasn't. But the screen lit up. A name I didn't recognize. And a message that made my stomach drop. Last night meant everything. "I miss you already." I just stared at it. For a long time. My first instinct was denial. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe I misunderstood. Then another message came through. Can't wait to see you again. Same place? That's when something inside me shifted. Not anger. Not yet. Just this cold, sinking realization that the life I thought I had might not be real. I didn't confront her right away. I wish I could say it was because I was being strategic. But the truth is, I was scared of what she'd say. For the next few days I watched her. It sounds creepy when I say it like that, but I didn't know what else to do. I paid attention to things I'd ignored before. How often she smiled at her phone, how she dressed a little nicer for work, how she seemed lighter somehow. Like she had something outside this house that made her happy. Something that wasn't me. Daniel was different too. More distant. More tense. At dinner, the three of us barely spoke. It felt like we were all pretending, but no one was willing to say anything out loud. One evening, I saw Claire texting and smiling. Daniel noticed it too. He looked at me, then back at her. There was something in that look. Almost like accusation. That's when the thought hit me. What if he knew something I didn't? I confronted her on a Sunday. Daniel was out with friends, and the house felt too quiet. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I showed her the messages. Her face changed instantly. At first, she tried to play it off. Said it was a colleague, that I was misinterpreting things. But even she didn't sound convinced. Don't lie to me, I said. And then she just broke. Tears. Shaking hands. The whole thing. It wasn't supposed to happen, she said. I didn't mean for it to go this far. That's when the anger hit. How long? I asked. She hesitated. About a year. A year. While I sat in this house thinking everything was fine, she was building a whole other life. I felt like an idiot. Worse than that, I felt replaceable. I expected rage. Yelling. Maybe even throwing something. But what I felt instead was hollow. Like someone had scooped out everything inside me and left nothing but noise. We argued, of course. I asked questions I didn't want answers to. She tried to explain things that didn't make sense. I felt invisible, she said. That one stuck with me. Invisible. After everything, years of marriage, raising a child together, that's how she saw me? Or maybe that's how I made her feel. That thought made it worse. Because now it wasn't just betrayal. It was doubt. Was this my fault? Was I the kind of husband who drove his wife into someone else's arms? I didn't know what hurt more, the cheating, or the possibility that I had something to do with it. When Daniel found out, everything fell apart. I didn't even tell him directly. He overheard us arguing. He came into the room, looked between us, and just said, "So it's finally out." That's when I knew. You knew? I asked. He didn't even hesitate. Yeah. How long? Months. Months. My own son knew his mother was cheating on me, and he said nothing. Why didn't you tell me? I asked, my voice cracking. And that's when his expression changed. From guarded to angry. Because you wouldn't have listened, he said. That hit harder than anything Claire had said. I'm your father, I snapped. And you never noticed anything, he shot back. You never notice anything unless it affects you. I didn't have a response. Because deep down, I knew he wasn't entirely wrong. The argument between me and Daniel escalated quickly. Years of unspoken resentment just poured out. You think this is all Mom's fault? He said. You were never here. Even when you were physically here, you weren't actually present. That's not fair, I said, but it sounded weak. You ignored her. You ignored me. And now you're acting like the victim? That word victim stung. Because I was a victim. Wasn't I? My wife cheated on me. My son hid it from me. But in his eyes, I wasn't the one who got hurt. I was the one who caused it. I did everything for this family, I said. No, he replied. You provided. That's not the same thing. I didn't know what to say to that. Because for the first time, I wasn't sure I disagreed. Things didn't just get worse after that, they unraveled slowly, like something rotten finally being exposed to air. Daniel didn't explode again. That would have been easier to deal with. Instead, he shut down completely. He became polite in the coldest way possible. Short answers. No eye contact. No arguments, no emotion. Just distance. It was like living with a stranger who resented your existence. I'd come home from work and hear him in his room, door closed, voice low as he talked to friends online. The moment I stepped closer, silence. Or he'd leave the house entirely without saying a word. Claire and I tried to have adult conversations about what to do next, but every attempt felt fake. Like we were reading lines from a script neither of us believed in. I want to fix this, she kept saying. Fix what? The marriage? The damage? The years of disconnection? You should have thought about that a year ago. I told her once, more tired than angry. She flinched, but didn't argue. That almost made it worse. Because part of me wanted her to fight. To justify. To give me something solid to push against. Instead, she just looked defeated. And somehow, that made me feel even more alone. At night, I'd lie awake next to her, staring at the ceiling, wondering how two people could share a bed and feel so completely disconnected. I started thinking about every moment I brushed off her silence. Every time I chose work over conversation. Every time I assumed, fine, actually meant fine. And I hated that those thoughts didn't feel entirely wrong. The night Daniel said he hated me didn't come out of nowhere. It had been building for months, maybe years, and I was just too blind to see it. We were sitting at dinner like we always did. Same table. Same routine. Same silence. I tried to break it. Have you thought about colleges? I asked, keeping my tone neutral, like nothing else in our lives was falling apart. He didn't look up from his plate. I'm not staying here, he said. At first, I thought he meant out of state. Or just far away. What does that mean? I asked. It means I'm leaving as soon as I can, he said flatly. Something in me tightened. You don't get to just walk away from this family, I snapped. It came out harsher than I intended, but I didn't take it back. That's when he finally looked at me. Not like a son looking at his father. Like someone who had already made up their mind. What family? He asked quietly. The words landed heavier than shouting ever could. I felt my chest tighten, but I pushed forward anyway. This is still your home. We're still your parents. No, he said. You're just people I happen to live with. I didn't even have time to process that before he added. I hate you. Just like that. No hesitation. No raised voice. No emotion. Just a statement. I remember gripping the edge of the table so hard my knuckles went white. Claire gasped softly beside me, but I barely heard her. Hate is a strong word, I managed to say. Not really, he replied. It fits. And that was it. Something broke in me right then. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just quietly. After that night, whatever was left of our family dynamic completely collapsed. Daniel stopped pretending altogether. He didn't just avoid me, he erased me. If I walked into a room, he walked out. If I spoke, he acted like he didn't hear it. I tried at first. I really did. Can we talk? I asked him one evening. No. Just 5 minutes. I said no. There was no anger in his voice anymore. Just finality. Claire and I existed in this strange limbo. Not together, not fully separated. Just coexisting in the wreckage. We'd sit across from each other sometimes, trying to talk about practical things, bills, schedules, what to tell relatives. But it always drifted back to the same question. What happened to us? And neither of us had a clear answer. Eventually, she said she was leaving. Not in a dramatic, storm-out kind of way. Just a quiet decision that had clearly been forming long before she said it out loud. "I think it's better for everyone," she said. "Is it?" I asked. She hesitated. "I don't know. But staying like this isn't working." I wanted to argue. To tell her she didn't get to walk away after everything. But the truth is, I didn't have the energy. So I just nodded. She packed over the course of a few days. Slowly. Methodically. Daniel barely reacted. That might have been the most painful part. I thought things might change after Claire left. I thought maybe, without her in the middle, Daniel and I could reset somehow. That was naive. If anything, it made things worse. Because now there was no buffer. No distraction. Just the two of us, stuck in a house full of things we didn't say. I tried approaching him differently. Less authority. More vulnerability, I guess. "I know I haven't been the best father," I told him one night. He didn't even look up from his phone. "That's one way to put it." "I'm trying to understand," I said. "Help me understand." He let out a quiet, humorless laugh. "Now you want to understand?" His words stung, but I pushed through. "Yes. I do." He finally looked at me, and there was something in his eyes I hadn't seen before. Not just anger. Disappointment. "You had years," he said. "Years to notice things. To ask questions. To care." "I did care," I said quickly. "No," he replied. "You cared about providing. About keeping things stable. But you never actually saw us." That word again. Invisible. Claire had said it. Now he was saying it. And suddenly it didn't feel like a coincidence. "I didn't know," I said, and I hated how weak it sounded. "Exactly," he said. "You didn't know. And you didn't try to." That conversation stayed with me. Because for the first time, I started to wonder if my version of being a good father was never enough to begin with. So now I'm here, trying to make sense of something that doesn't have a clean explanation. I still replay that moment at the dinner table over and over again. "I hate you." Not shouted. Not said in anger. Just stated like a fact. And the worst part is, I don't know how much of it I deserve. I've gone through every memory I can think of. Every decision. Every missed opportunity. The times I chose work over family dinners. The times I dismissed Claire's silence because it was easier than asking what was wrong. The times I assumed Daniel was fine, because he wasn't causing problems. I used to think being a good father meant providing stability. Being reliable. Keeping things running. Now I'm not so sure. Because somewhere along the way, I lost connection. And I didn't even notice it happening. That's what keeps me up at night. Not just the betrayal. Not just the anger. But the realization that I might have been slowly losing my family for years, and calling it normal. I don't know if Daniel will ever forgive me. I don't know if I can fix this. All I know is that I would give anything, literally anything, for one more conversation where he looks at me like I'm his father again. Instead of someone he regrets being related to.